Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. My name is Susan Guthrie, and myself and my colleague Sarah Parks would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to the Impact Survey, which will form part of a wider programme of work we're undertaking over the next year together with EduHK to help you prepare for the RAE in 2020. So I'd like to start by briefly introducing ourselves. So we're both senior researchers in Research and Innovation Policy here at RAND Europe, which is a not-for-profit policy research organisation. We're part of the wider global RAND Corporation, which is headquartered in Santa Monica in the US, and our European offices are based in Cambridge in the UK and in Brussels, Belgium. We work across the breadth and depth of government in Europe and internationally to provide evidence with the aim of helping to improve policy and decision-making through research and analysis. In this particular area around research impact, we've got quite a significant track record. We've done a lot of work in terms of measuring research impact, conducting evaluations around the impact of research, and this slide shows some of the reports we've published in the space over the last 20 years or so, and I'm not going to talk through all of these in detail, but just to say, really, we've done a wide range of work spanning research evaluation frameworks, metrics, and measuring the impact of research portfolios for funders and policymakers in the US, Australia, Canada, the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. As part of that, we've also been very involved in several key studies in relation to the research assessment system here in the UK. So this started really with a review we did back in 2003 as part of the Roberts Review of the then RAE, or the Research Assessment Exercise, and some work we did for the Higher Education Funding Council for England, so HEFCE, in 2009, to better understand what the international context was for assessing research impact. Many of the recommendations from that report were then taken up in the design of the Research Excellence Framework, or the REF, here in the UK, particularly the incorporation of case studies as a way to assess societal impact. More recently, we conducted an evaluation of both the submission and the assessment process for research impact in the REF here in the UK in 2014 for HEFCE. Another thing that we've been doing in parallel to that is working with a number of universities here in the UK to help them develop their impact strategies and select and prepare case studies for the REF, both before 2014 and on an ongoing basis, and now helping to prepare for the REF, which will be running again in 2021 in the UK. Drawing on this experience and our wider work with HEFCE, we've participated quite significantly in the wider discussion around the REF also. So we've presented at a number of conferences on the topic. We've also published opinion pieces and blogs, and we've submitted a formal response to the consultation on the Stern Review, which took place after 2014 to inform their process for the REF in 2021. So as for the REF in the UK, the research assessment exercise in Hong Kong in 2020 will, for the first time, include assessment of impact based on peer review of impact case study. So the rules around eligibility and submission, as well as the criteria for assessment, are almost identical to what was used in the REF in 2021 in the UK. So we really know those rules in depth, and we're very pleased to be able to provide support and expertise to help you actually prepare your case studies for submission. The most recent guidance released by UGC last month provides most of the details that you will need regarding requirements for case studies, and the link is there at the bottom of the slide, so you can go and have a look at that information, so that's for your own reference. But some key points that it's worth pulling out. So firstly, case studies need to be submitted by the 16th of December 2019. So there is still some time between now and then to develop and finalise case studies before the deadline. And secondly, not all researchers need to produce a case study. So the requirements are that for each unit of assessment, which is a subject area grouping, each institution will need to submit one case study for every 15 eligible academic staff members, or in fact slightly fewer for this for very large submissions. So with that in mind, our aim is first to identify the strongest potential case studies for submission to the RE in 2020, and then we'll be working with the relevant members of staff to help develop those case studies over the course of the next year. The work will be conducted in 3 phases. So firstly, we'll work with you to identify the best case studies through a survey of research staff at the university. We'll then work with the relevant research to help develop those case studies and gather evidence of impact. And then finally, in phase 3, we'll review and refine drafts of those case studies, and we'll conduct a mock panel assessment to test their robustness and support any final revisions and refinements ahead of submission in 2019. In the remainder of this presentation, we're going to focus on the work in phase 1 of the process. So The aim of phase 1 is to identify the impacts that researchers at the university are having through a survey of researchers that's going to be conducted over the next month. We'll then analyse the findings of that survey and produce a summary report which will set out key areas of impact by unit of assessment and identify potential case studies. These findings will then be discussed in more detail at a series of workshops which will be held in late February, where we'll work with units of assessments to identify their priority case studies for further development in the next stage of the process. For the remainder of the talk, we're going to provide more details on the process of completing the impact survey, which we'll be doing over the next month. And for that, I'll hand over to my colleague, Sarah Parks.
Great, thank you very much, Sue. So I'll start with some practicalities. So the survey will be launched on Monday, the 4th of December, and will be available for a month for you to complete. So it will close on Friday, the 5th of January. On the 4th of December, you will all receive a personalized invite by email, including an individual link to the online survey. Please click through from your invite because this will allow us to link responses to the appropriate research area for our analyses. The survey should take no more than 15 minutes to complete for the majority of respondents. This will depend a little on the number and range of impacts you have to report, but responses are all stored automatically, so the survey can be completed in more than one sitting if necessary. So for example, if you need to check some details and return to the survey later, you'll be able to do that. Survey responses will be stored securely and will only be used for the purposes of our work with EduHK. All responses will be treated with confidentiality and will not be shared outside of the study team and colleagues at EduHK. The survey can be accessed on a phone or tablet, but we recommend that it's easiest to complete on a computer. So I'll go quickly through some of the key definitions and criteria in relation to impact submissions for the RAE 2020. So impact is defined as the demonstrable contributions, beneficial effects, valuable changes or advantages that research qualitatively brings to the economy, society, culture, public policy or services, health, the environment or quality of life, whether locally, regionally or internationally, and that are beyond academia. This means that only impacts outside academia are appropriate for inclusion in an impact case study, and it's these impacts that we'll be asking about in the survey. It's also important to understand the relevant time periods for case studies. Impacts reported must have happened between the 1st of October 2013 and the 30th of September 2019. And these impacts have to be based on research conducted between the 1st of January 2000 and the 30th of September 2019. Another important thing to note is that impacts reported need to be based on research conducted at EduHK. So if you have conducted some research at a previous institution that has had an impact in the relevant time period, that's not eligible for submission unless you can show that the relevant research has continued since you've joined this university. These rules and additional details about the rules for impact case studies are available in the guidance provided by the UGC, and the time periods relevant to the case studies are also made clear in the survey. So based on these rules, in the survey, we'll ask questions covering 4 main areas. So what impact has your work had since October 2013? What impact do you expect your work to have by September 2019? What evidence do you have for the impact that has happened? And finally, we'll ask for some information about the research that you have conducted which underpins that impact. The survey breaks this down into a set of impact categories, which I'll describe in a moment. And the idea of these is to help you think through the potential range of impacts your work may have had, with plenty of examples and suggestions provided throughout. Most of the questions are multiple choice to help make the survey quick and easy to complete. But there is some space for you to provide additional detail in free text boxes. And we strongly encourage you to complete these to make sure we have all the relevant information so that we can make informed decisions about the best case studies to take forward into phase 2. So in the survey, we've broken down impact into 9 categories listed here. In addition, we also provide a section for any other impacts that you wish to note that may fall outside these categories. We don't expect that most research will have had impact across all or even most of these areas. For many researchers, we anticipate you will only have impacts in 1 or 2 or 3 of the areas. but the diversity of categories is provided to make sure you can think through all of the potential areas in which your research could have had an impact. And it also makes the survey applicable to capture impact from research in a wide range of disciplines. It's important to note that the breadth of impacts across categories is not necessarily an indication of the level of impact a researcher has had or the potential quality of an impact case study. It may be that you have had most or all of your impact in one area, but that there has been an important and significant benefit in that area, which could indicate a very high quality case study. However, we do encourage you to consider all the categories and report any relevant impacts that you are aware of. So now we'll go through the screens you'll see as you work your way through the survey. When you click on the link provided in the email, it will take you to this introduction page. This page has a reminder of the purpose of the survey and some of the dates and rules around impact case studies. Please do take a few moments when you start the survey to read this page and refresh your memory. The page also provides a link to the guidance from UGC if you would like to review any additional details on the RAE. Finally, note at the bottom, the survey provides a contact email address, and you can use this to get in touch with us if you have any questions or difficulties with the survey. Once you've reviewed the information provided, you can click on the next button at the bottom of the survey to proceed to the first survey questions. So for each of the impact categories, we'll start by asking if your research for EduHK has had an impact in that area. I will talk through the questions using the first category, impact on the economy, but the format of the questions is identical for each of the categories. In each case, we will include a list of examples of the types of impacts that could be included in the relevant category. This isn't intended to be exhaustive, it's just intended to help you think through your work and decide whether this category of impact may be relevant to you. If your research has had an impact on the economy since October 2013, you select the first option. If you anticipate that your research will have an impact on the economy by September 2019, select the second option. Finally, if you don't think this category of impact is relevant for your research, you can select the final option. If you select one of the first two options, you'll be taken to a page which asks for more detail about this category of impact. However, if you select the final option, you'll be taken on to the next category of impact without any further questions about impact on the economy. This means that the survey is quick to complete, as you only need to go through the detail of the impact categories that are relevant for your research. Note that throughout the survey, you have both previous and next buttons at the bottom of the page, and this means that you can go back to previous pages and change answers if you need to. Once you've selected the appropriate response on this page, you click Next. So if you've selected that your research has had an impact since October 2013 or is anticipated to have an impact by September 2019, you'll be taken through to a Details of Impact page. Firstly, you'll be asked to indicate the ways in which your research has had or will have an impact on the economy over the RAE assessment period. Please feel free to tick as many options as you feel are relevant to your research here. The left column is for impacts that have already taken place since October 2013. The right column is for impacts that you expect to happen by September 2019. You can tick both options for the same column if that is appropriate. As well as the options we provide, there's also a box where you can enter other types of impact on the economy that do not correspond to the list of options provided. Please note whether these impacts have already taken place or whether they are anticipated. Next, there's a question asking for additional details about the impacts mentioned above. In this box, please provide some more specific information on the impacts you have indicated. Useful information here could include key stakeholders or organizations benefiting from the impact, the way any impacts mentioned link together, or any specifics on the scale of the impact. This could be provided as a bullet point list. We do not need a long piece of text, just the key facts. This type of information will really help us to understand not just the type of impact, but the scale of the impact and its reach. And this will help us make informed judgments as to whether this might be appropriate to take forward as an impact case study. Finally, for each category of impact, we'll ask you about the evidence that's available to support the impact case study. There's a requirement for case studies to include evidence to show the impact that is claimed, and this can take many formats, and the relevant evidence will differ depending on the type of impact. We provide some specific examples in the survey, but key forms of evidence across all categories of impact include testimonials or letters of support, citations or mentions of researchers or the university in documentation, feedback surveys, relevant data sets, for example, in this case, that could be data from company accounting, and reviews or other press and social media coverage. In this question, we ask you to indicate the availability of the evidence by selecting one of the 4 options. So yes, I already have this evidence. Yes, the evidence could be easily collected. Yes, the evidence exists but could be difficult to collect. And no, this evidence is not readily available. Please also provide more detail on the evidence that you already have and any other comments on the availability of evidence. For example, any important gaps or challenges around the collection of evidence in the text box provided for the final question on this page. Once you've completed all the questions on the page, you can click the next button to move on to the next impact category. Great, so once you've worked through all the impact categories, the final set of questions in the survey asks about the research that underpins the impacts described. There may be a number of different projects or pieces of work that have contributed to the impacts you mentioned, so please list any and all you consider to be important in the box provided for the first question. Useful information could include the name of the project or program of work, the PI or any other key researchers involved, and the dates when the research took place. It would also be useful to indicate whether the work took place solely at EduHK or whether it was collaborative. The next question then asks you to indicate whether there are publications or other research outputs of appropriate quality to underpin the impacts claimed. The UGC guidance indicates that impacts must be based on underpinning research equivalent to at least attaining 2-star in the output assessment. According to the guidance, a panel will grade a research output as 2-star if the panel sees evidence of or potential for characteristics such as an output being a recognized point of reference or of some influence, providing useful or valuable knowledge or influence, or demonstrating incremental advances in knowledge, thinking, practices, or paradigms. Finally, in the text box at the bottom of the page, please list up to 5 key publications or other outputs which underpin the impacts described. These could include forthcoming publications if you expect that these will be published by September 2019. Clicking next on this page will bring you to a closing page where we offer our thanks for your time and you can confirm the survey is complete. Great, so that's a description of the survey. So your next steps are firstly to look out for the survey link, which you will receive on Monday the 4th of December. Please do check that you have received the invitation, checking junk mail folders if necessary, and contact us if you do not think you have received the invitation. Once you have the invitation, please do go ahead and complete the survey. We advise you do this before the holidays if possible, but by the 5th of January at the latest, which is when the survey will close. As noted earlier, please do feel free to contact us if you have any questions, either now or when you come to complete the survey, at the email address given on this slide. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation, and thank you in advance for completing the survey. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. We look forward to working with you to develop your impact case studies.